She left her dorm for a simple college party, but by sunrise, she was fighting for her life. What happened inside that house wasn't an accident, it was a carefully planned trap that dozens had walked into before. And this time, the truth refused to stay buried. 21-year-old Marisa Villanueva had always been the type of student who avoided unnecessary attention. Most days, she moved quietly between her nursing classes, the library, and her dorm room. Her routine was predictable, safe, and focused entirely on her dream of finishing school without distractions. That changed when Adrian Rosales, a charismatic senior known for throwing expensive parties, approached her after class and invited her to a gathering he claimed would be small and friendly. Marisa hesitated, unsure why someone like Adrian would notice her, but she convinced herself it might be harmless to attend just once. She spent the afternoon preparing in the simplest way possible, choosing a comfortable outfit and avoiding anything that felt too bold. Her roommate, surprised she was going out at all, reminded her to stay alert, but Marisa brushed off the concern. She believed Adrian had no reason to mislead her. Before leaving, she sent a brief message to her cousin letting her know she would be back before midnight. A rideshare dropped her near the edge of Antipolo, where Adrian waited outside a large private home perched on a hill. The area looked quiet and safe, far from the usual nightlife spots students visited. Adrian greeted her with confidence, acting as though he had invited her many times before. Marisa followed him through the front gate, telling herself that stepping outside her comfort zone might finally help her feel more connected to college life. Still, as they approached the glowing windows and faint music, a small sense of unease tugged at her. She ignored it, assuming it was only nervousness. She had no idea that accepting Adrian's invitation would mark the beginning of the most dangerous night of her life. Adrian led Marisa through the front door of the house, and the atmosphere immediately overwhelmed her senses. The living room was filled with flashing lights, loud music, and groups of students spread across couches and staircases. Although the house looked elegant from the outside, inside it felt chaotic, as if every corner had been taken over by noise and movement. Marisa tried to stay close to Adrian, unsure of how to blend in with the crowd. He seemed completely at ease, greeting people with casual nods while guiding her deeper into the house. She noticed that most guests carried drinks, and some moved with a confidence that suggested they had been there many times before. The entire place seemed designed for long nights, with multiple rooms open and decorated with expensive-looking furniture. Marisa sensed that the party wasn't as small as Adrian had described. More guests continued to arrive, filling the hallways and blocking the view of the exit. Even so, she tried to remain calm, telling herself she could leave whenever she wanted. On the walls, she noticed tiny objects that looked like decorative fixtures, but they were positioned strangely, angled downward, almost as if they were meant to capture everything happening below. She had no idea they were hidden cameras placed by Adrian, Lucas de Vera, and Ramon del Mundo to record their parties without anyone's knowledge. Marisa stayed near a corner, observing groups as they laughed, flirted, or argued over small things. The loud music made it impossible to think clearly, but she tried to appear relaxed. Adrian returned with drinks, still confident and charming. She accepted one out of politeness, unaware that the house, the cameras, and the people inside were all part of a carefully controlled environment she was walking into without any warning. Marisa held the drink Adrian handed her, taking only a small sip as she tried to settle into the overwhelming atmosphere around her. At first, nothing felt unusual. She assumed her nervousness was simply making her more alert than normal. But within minutes, a strange heaviness began to spread through her body. The sound of music seemed to blur, and the lights in the room appeared brighter than they should have been. She blinked several times, hoping the sensation would pass, but the dizziness grew stronger with each passing second. She moved toward the staircase railing for support, trying to steady her breathing. Her vision narrowed, making it hard to focus on the faces moving around her. A few guests glanced in her direction, noticing her unsteady posture, but no one stepped in to help. Most assumed she had simply consumed too much alcohol. Marisa knew that wasn't possible, she had barely tasted her drink. A cold wave of confusion washed over her as her legs weakened. Adrian appeared beside her almost immediately, acting concerned as he placed a hand on her shoulder. He guided her away from the crowded area, insisting she needed fresh air. Marisa struggled to process what was happening, but she forced herself to follow him, hoping the dizziness might fade if she rested for a moment. Instead of taking her outside, he led her toward the staircase and up to the second floor, where the noise from the party softened into a low rumble. Her condition worsened with each step. By the time they reached the hallway, her balance had almost disappeared. She gripped the wall to stay upright as Adrian steered her toward a bedroom door. Her thoughts became slow and blurry, and the sinking realization that something was terribly wrong hit her just moments before her strength finally gave out. As the party grew louder downstairs, the absence of Marisa went largely unnoticed. Most guests were preoccupied with their own conversations, drifting between the living room, the kitchen, and the backyard. A few remembered seeing her earlier near the stairs, but none could recall where she went afterward. The house's layout, with its many rooms and dim lighting, made it easy for someone to disappear without attracting attention. By midnight, groups began leaving to attend other events, and the once-packed living room became scattered with empty cups, discarded jackets, and half-finished drinks. Adrian moved through the crowd with practiced calm, giving no sign that anything unusual had occurred. Lucas de Vera and Ramon del Mundo stayed close by, keeping an eye on anyone who looked curious about the upstairs hallway. They made sure no one wandered in that direction, casually redirecting guests back toward the music or refreshments. Marisa's phone remained untouched inside her bag, which sat on a chair near the kitchen. Several people passed by it, unaware that its owner was no longer anywhere that could be considered safe. Her cousin's message, asking if she had arrived home yet, went unanswered. In the crowded house, her silence blended into the general noise and went unnoticed. Occasionally, guests asked Adrian where she had gone. He replied casually that she was tired and had chosen to sleep for a while. His explanation was simple enough that no one questioned it. After all, many students fell asleep in random rooms during parties. It wasn't unusual, and no one wanted to look overly concerned. As the night continued, the music drowned out any suspicion. What should have sparked worry instead faded into the background. Marisa had vanished into the shadows of the house, and the people around her had unknowingly allowed it to happen. At sunrise, the once loud house had fallen into an eerie silence. Most of the guests had already gone home, leaving behind only scattered trash, stale air, and a few sleeping students who had passed out on couches. The owners had hired a cleaner, Aling Teresa, to arrive early and restore the house before the next renters came. She entered through the side door, expecting the usual mess, but sensed that something felt different the moment she stepped inside. The silence was too heavy, too unnatural for a place that had been full of people just hours earlier. As she moved from room to room, she picked up cans, gathered bottles, and opened windows to let in fresh air. When she reached the staircase, she noticed a faint dragging mark on one of the steps, something she had never seen before. Curious, she followed it up to the second floor, where several doors stood slightly ajar. She checked each one, finding nothing unusual, until she reached a door that wouldn't open. It was locked from the inside, which immediately unsettled her. She knocked, waited, and knocked again, but there was no response. Her instincts told her something was wrong. After several attempts, she located a spare key in a drawer near the hallway. With shaky hands, she unlocked the door and pushed it open. The room smelled faintly of sweat and something metallic. On the floor, half hidden behind the bed, lay Marisa Villanueva, pale, cold, and barely breathing. Her lips had turned a faint bluish color, and her chest rose only slightly with each weak breath. Aling Teresa rushed downstairs, trembling as she called emergency services. Within minutes, paramedics arrived and carried Marisa out on a stretcher. She was already in critical condition, fighting for her life before anyone realized she had ever been missing. Police arrived minutes after the ambulance left, moving quickly to secure the house before anyone could interfere with potential evidence. They gathered the remaining guests in the living room, noting their tired, uneasy expressions. Upstairs, the bedroom where Marisa had been found became the first priority. Officers observed overturned items, disturbed sheets, and marks on the floor that suggested she had been moved at some point during the night. Nothing about the room appeared natural or accidental. Downstairs, Adrian Rosales tried to maintain composure, but investigators immediately noticed the inconsistencies in his statements. He shifted between claiming he barely interacted with Marisa and insisting he had tried to help her when she felt dizzy. His inconsistencies stood out with every retelling. Lucas de Vera and Ramon del Mundo appeared just as unsettled, avoiding eye contact and offering minimal responses during questioning. Their behavior only strengthened suspicion. During the search, officers located several small devices hidden among decorative objects. When examined closely, they were confirmed as miniature cameras connected to a recording system. The discovery created a significant shift in the investigation, suggesting that surveillance was intentionally set up throughout the house. When police checked the storage units, they found that large sections of footage had been deleted around 3 a.m., long after most guests had left. A forensic technician managed to retrieve a few damaged video fragments, one showing Adrian leading Marisa toward the upper hallway. The clip ended abruptly, but its existence proved she had not simply wandered off. With the hidden cameras, missing footage, and conflicting testimonies, investigators realized they were dealing with far more than a medical collapse. It was the beginning of a serious criminal case that demanded every detail be uncovered. Doctors worked urgently to stabilize Marisa, running multiple tests to determine what had caused her collapse. The toxicology report delivered the first clear answer: her system contained a dangerous mix of substances she had never been known to use. The combination was strong enough to cause severe disorientation, memory loss, and respiratory failure. Nothing about the results pointed to an accident. Instead, they suggested deliberate exposure. Investigators compared these findings with the marks on her arms and shoulders. The bruises were small but distinct, forming patterns that indicated she had resisted being held or moved. They did not match the injuries of someone who had simply fallen or fainted. These details created a growing picture of force, not misfortune. Back at the station, detectives reviewed statements from party guests. Several admitted, quietly and off the record, that they had felt uneasy at previous gatherings hosted by Adrian Rosales. A few recalled strange-tasting drinks or friends who became confused after consuming minimal alcohol. Although none had reported these incidents, their accounts shared an unsettling consistency. Investigators also examined messages found on Adrian's phone. Group chats between him, Lucas de Vera, and Ramon del Mundo included playful but troubling remarks about special drinks and controlled nights. Their tone suggested familiarity with situations similar to Marisa's, adding weight to the suspicion that this was not their first time targeting someone. The medical evidence, the bruising, and the pattern of witness accounts all pointed in the same direction. Marisa's collapse was not an isolated tragedy, it was part of a larger, hidden pattern. For the first time, investigators had enough information to move the case beyond speculation and toward uncovering a coordinated and deliberate crime. A day after the incident, investigators widened their search for any external footage that might help reconstruct the missing hours of the night. They canvassed the neighborhood around the house, asking residents if anyone had security cameras facing the street. That was when they met Gino Alvarez, a middle-aged homeowner who kept a camera installed above his garage due to previous thefts in the area. He agreed to let officers review the recordings, unaware of how crucial they would become. The footage from Gino's camera captured a quiet street at night, interrupted only by a few cars and small groups leaving the party. But at exactly 3:12 a.m., the camera recorded two figures slipping out the front door of the rented house. They moved quickly and avoided the porch lights, but their clothing made them easy to identify. The jackets and shoes matched what Lucas de Vera and Ramon del Mundo had been wearing earlier that evening. One carried a small backpack, while the other held what appeared to be an external hard drive wrapped in a dark cloth. Their behavior was tense and urgent, not casual like the guests who left earlier. Investigators immediately connected the footage to the deleted files found inside the house. The timing was too precise to ignore. If the recordings disappeared between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., then Lucas and Ramon leaving shortly after 3 a.m. strongly suggested they had taken the missing data. Another neighbor reported hearing loud thuds and an argument coming from the upstairs area around the same time, long after the music had quieted. She had assumed it was just drunken guests fighting, but now her description added weight to the suspicion that something violent occurred before Marisa was discovered. With Lucas and Ramon implicated by both behavior and timing, investigators finally had independent witnesses confirming that the night's events extended far beyond a simple medical emergency. The digital forensics team worked tirelessly to recover whatever remained of the corrupted recordings from the hidden cameras. Most files had been deliberately wiped, but scattered fragments still existed on the damaged drives. After days of reconstruction, the team managed to restore a partial clip showing Adrian Rosales leading Marisa up the stairs toward the hallway. The timestamp revealed she was already struggling to stand, confirming she had been moved while in a vulnerable state. The footage cut off before they reached the bedroom, but it was enough to raise serious concern. Investigators then examined the deletion logs within the system. Metadata showed that several files had been accessed and manually erased around 3 a.m., precisely the time Lucas de Vera and Ramon del Mundo were recorded leaving the house with the backpack and hard drive. The matching timeline strengthened the theory that the two men had intentionally removed evidence to protect Adrian and themselves. During another round of questioning, Adrian's explanation changed once more. He now claimed Marisa had asked to rest and insisted he merely helped her find a quiet room. This contradicted earlier versions of his story, further eroding his credibility. His hesitation and evasive answers made investigators even more certain he was hiding key details. Detectives also uncovered chat logs between Adrian, Lucas, and Ramon. The messages hinted at previous incidents at their parties, implying a pattern of behavior rather than a single mistake. The tone of their conversations showed confidence that they could handle any fallout, exposing a disturbing level of planning. With the partial footage, deletion evidence, and Adrian's shifting statements, the investigation reached a turning point. What happened to Marisa was no longer viewed as a mysterious collapse, it was a coordinated act that someone had tried very hard to erase. In the weeks leading up to the trial, the case against Adrian Rosales grew stronger, despite the defense's desperate attempt to reshape the narrative. His lawyers argued that Marisa's death was a tragic accident, claiming she had simply mixed alcohol with her medication. But prosecutors countered with the digital evidence, the recovered footage fragments, and the suspiciously timed deletions that painted a far darker picture. Witnesses slowly began to come forward, some reluctantly, others with visible guilt. A few admitted they had seen Marisa barely conscious near the end of the night, confirming that she was in no condition to make decisions or move on her own. One guest recalled noticing Adrian guiding her toward the stairs, his grip firm enough to make her stumble. Their testimony supported the theory that she had been incapacitated long before she was taken to the room. Lucas de Vera and Ramon del Mundo, who had once been confident they could escape consequences, started to unravel under pressure. The recovered backpack and damaged hard drive tied them directly to the attempted cover-up. Faced with mounting evidence, they eventually agreed to cooperate in exchange for reduced charges. Their statements confirmed that Adrian had ordered the deletion of footage and instructed them to clean up the mess before anyone discovered what happened. When the verdict was finally read, the courtroom remained tense and silent. Adrian was found guilty on multiple charges, including obstruction of justice and contributing to Marisa's death. Lucas and Ramon faced their own penalties, though lighter due to their cooperation. For Marisa's family, the decision brought sorrow but also a measure of closure. The truth had finally surfaced, and the people who tried to bury it were held accountable.